Have you ever wanted to see where Twin Peaks was filmed, meet a cast member, or get wrapped in plastic? Well, you can see all of that in the new documentary, A Voyage to Twin Peaks. Scott Ryan takes you on a lighthearted journey through the 25th anniversary Twin Peaks Festival. See the Log Lady's final appearance at the fest. Listen to Lucy talk about coming to the festival for so many years, and get a tour of set locations from Brad Dukes, Josh Eisenstadt, and Rob Lindley. Rent or buy A Voyage to Twin Peaks, streaming now on Amazon.com, directed by Scott Ryan and produced by the Red Room Podcast.
Hi, I'm Sherilyn Fenn, and you're listening to the Red Room Podcast.
Welcome to the Red Room Podcast, episode 114. We've been waiting for all this time to get Audrey Horne on the program, and today our dreams come true. Welcome to the show, Sherilyn Fenn.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely an honor to speak with you. I know that you've been auditioning a lot. You're on Shameless, Ray Donovan. You're out and about. When you go out for an audition, what does it mean to have Twin Peaks on your resume for casting agents and the people who are making television today?
I think at the end of the day, Hollywood is very interested in the very last thing you did, and maybe even if you've recently worked, it's always, my personal experience is it's kind of just prove it, prove it, prove it. But in addition to that, they have to, put together their ensemble and blah, blah, blah. So I don't I don't wear that hat, so I'm not sure what it is. I think in some moments it's wonderful, but in other moments it might be limiting if somebody only remembers me from, beautiful Audrey, but I was 22 or 23, so at 51, there might be a surprise,
No, you're still beautiful. We won't hear that for a second. But, I feel like on the Gilmore Girls, she seemed to do, Amy seemed to do a lot of Twin Peaks references. Matchin' and Mick is on there, and I always wondered if that sort of helped you, because you played two parts on the Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, it did. Amy Sherman Palladino, that would be in her mind or not, I don't know. I was doing Rude Awakening when she was casting Gilmore Girls, and I know she was frustrated because she was thinking of me possibly as the mama role. But I loved doing that show. I mean, she has the ability to see people in all different ways. It's so rare that somebody will put you on the show. No, I guess David did it, but it's totally different with what Amy did. Short white hair, great.
Right.
Long dark hair, terrific.
Well, and that was supposed to be a spinoff at the time, right?
Yes, it was.
With you and Jess, and I always wished that would have happened. It would have been great.
Well, it was centered around Milo, really, because his character had such a huge following, and the funny story is that, some person said, in a position of power that Milo wasn't strong enough to carry a show. And then, as the fates have it, a year later, he's the lead of Heroes. So they're very foolish.
Right.
Very foolish things happen in Hollywood.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah.
So one of my favorite things that you have done is boxing Helena. I think that sort of gets put into this Hollywood story about all the backstory that happened with that movie, but the actual plot about a man literally putting a woman on a pedestal is such a great script. Why did you decide to do that movie?
Well, initially, I had only met Jennifer, I want to say once on the Twin Peaks set, and I think I was, a little defensive and jealous because I love David and that's his daughter and all this kind of silly stuff. I was like, that's his daughter, But my agent just said, just read it, and I'd heard all the stuff, But when I read it, I just kept turning the pages, and Helena was pretty strong, and she kind of scared me in the beginning, how strong, which really I've come to find out wasn't ultimately strength, but just her guards very high. To protect herself. I just thought it was a really interesting, great role. And when I then met with Jennifer about it, and we sat in a coffee shop for, a couple of hours and just talked about it. And at that point, Ed Harris was still attached, who I adore.
Wow, I didn't know that Ed was. That would have been so much better. I mean,
he was still attached. He was attached, but from doing it, I think was. Yeah, he was there, I believe, through Kim Basinger and through Madonna, he considered. And then we all had a lunch, and he just said, the problem is very simply, I'm so much older than Sherilyn that it becomes an older man obsessed with a younger woman, and that's not the story you wrote, Jennifer. So, just by virtue of my age, it's too much, and it's a different story. He's obsessed not because she's 20 years younger. So, he left, unfortunately for us. Julian is beautiful and wonderful, but, and that ended up being what it was supposed to be. But yeah, I was excited. And when I finished reading, I threw it across the room. I was afraid of it. I didn't, and then speaking with her and understanding, that these are, if you could see Jen said, if you could see the wounds through, obsessive and any relationship really that we inflict upon each other, to show it visually, but not in a horrific, like you're seeing limbs be, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was,
right.
There's
it's mental.
no blood in the film. Well, but people flipped, and what little group chose to focus on it, like, were a little crazy,
Well, I just rewatched it like maybe 2 months ago, and what really struck me was how Helena is not a nice person at all. And especially to him. And that makes it better. Like, she's so mean to him, and it makes it so much more that he's not really in love with her. It's total obsession. And it's a rare part for, I think, a female actress to have. And I think it's your best role, and that includes Audrey, which I don't know if our listeners will agree with that or not. But, I mean, you're just so brave in the movie. I mean, I love it.
Thank you so much. I don't see things that I do. I loved doing it. I was really hurt because I remember, I gave everything. I did like everything into this one. And then, it was at that point I read a shitty review and it was at that point I decided, I'm not reading these anymore, because if you believe the good, you got to believe the bad. You know what I mean? And that by reading it, it tainted my experience with it. I mean, it was a really hard story to tell. It was a razor's edge, certainly. Having shot it, I felt like sometimes the tone would go in and out, but Jennifer is young, and we're all doing this really brave story, and I don't know. So many women, responded to it. So many. And then people got angry about it.
Well, I think it's the kind of movie that someone can miss the point, because you can totally get, like when and actually Jen does a great job of the first time we see you in the box. I remember I saw it in the theater, and everyone laughed, and it's okay to laugh. It's like a David Lynch movie in the fact that sometimes you laugh when you shouldn't.
Right, because you don't know what laughing is. The same thing as crying, and that is what I discovered the first time I was in the box. In that scene.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jen said you have to keep, and at the end of it, after
yeah,
when Jennifer came over to me and I was in the box, so we would just lean and push our heads together, because that's the only way that we could equally touch without her just touching me in a box like a weird object. And anyway, I just started crying. I said that it's the same as crying, laughing. It's the same physiological dynamic. I'm like,
yeah.
And I was like, she goes,
you're just amazing in that scene. But so you're one of the few actors to be directed by both Lynches. What is the comparison and contrast between them? I mean, do you see something?
Well, David is, of course. David is. I mean, they both have the quality of being such artists and sort of geniuses and fearless of going into their truthful way of viewing things. They don't try to do it to be weird. They see beauty in things that other people can't. But the difference is, like, David is more, was with me anyway, he's kind of abstract, and he kind of like hypnotically talks to you about, like when I mean, how do you direct somebody in Wild at Heart, that like the last minutes of their life, but it was just like, the bobby pin and your head itches and your mom is really mad and like this kind in there, okay, go, and you're like, okay, and just that's weird. But Jen's a woman, so we're going to talk about it and go into it, and she's going to have I think sometimes women's perspective can wear more hats. She sees hers, she sees his, she sees theirs, she sees babies, she sees, and she's so open and authentic as a person. It's infectious. I mean, everybody that meets Jennifer loves her because she's this kind of deeply insightful, loving, wise woman who sees the importance and beauty in everything. There is no above the line, below the line, this one's more important, that is, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She's very present to everything now. They're very different, very, very different.
Well, you mentioned Wild at Heart, and your part in that is small, no doubt, but extremely important because you're the tipping point for Lula and Sailor's journey. So how do you prepare for a part that is small? Do you view it that way? Or, I mean, how much did you know about stepping into that?
David came and said, there's a scene in the movie and the highway and, luggage, and there's then this woman and she's a broken china doll and she's all bloody and she's getting ready to die and it's you. And you're like, okay. And that's like David. That's David, right? We're going to sit. We're going to write this scene. We're going to have a cappuccino. You're going to do this. And at the end of the scene, you're going to stand up and dance. What? This has happened the same day. And you're like, okay. And what my teacher had always said to me, it's David. David met me for 15 minutes. And what was a poignant time in my life as a young actress, because I was always trying to be who people wanted me to be, or that they'll like me or whatever. And through a series of events, this was the first interview that I was just going to be myself, and I was going to, which is kind of shy when you first meet me and whatever. Long story short, meet him 15 minutes. He writes Audrey Horne for me. She's not in the pilot. So, and then that leads to this, and all these years later, he just saw something and sees something and can go right into somebody's soul and just, put it out there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think because of, and so I shot the pilot only with David and by myself, and that was a big deal because I like to work with people, and right after that, I had met Roy London, who was my mentor and my, friend and father figure and so many things. And anyway, so I worked with him when we did the series. But the pilot was just David, so it was, and his thing would be, when David was rewriting that scene and I was dancing and I called Roy panicked, he said, it's David, he knows what, just trust him. David always knew somehow where to put me and what to do,
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah.
It's interesting. I know that Roy London was really important to Gary Shandling as well as a acting coach. What did Roy help you do in finding Audrey? Because one of the questions I had for you was how different Audrey is in the pilot versus the first 7 episodes. There's a shift in Audrey that sort of happens over season 1. Would that have been Roy's influence, or?
I would think so. I would also think that also working with Roy, starting to work that way, starting to see the way, he's almost like a life teacher of helping you to have the courage and the ability to see yourself clearly enough to then manifest that through other roles. Like when I first read Helena, I'm like, oh, she's such a bitch, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how I could ever, I'm not like her. And he goes, oh, honey, we need to sit down and talk. And we did, we made sandwiches and he told me, so it's very interesting. I would have to say definitely it helped, but what Roy helped you do was it was completely identifying where you are in the question marks of your growth as a human being, and what's almost always happened in my work is then these characters, they parallel that. I don't have anything more interesting to give than the bottom line raw truth of my life, and Audrey, I met Audrey at a time when she was written for, she's written for me. It's a bunch of my clothes are being worn. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, it was words on a piece of paper. For so long, I just was like, David. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I played her, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? Other people may not have said it that way. I didn't know. There's something beautiful that happens in work. And if it's in the nice environment and it's loving, and David is so loving, and like magic happens. It's strange.
So how did you handle other directors taking with Audrey? I mean, so because to you it seems like David really played an important part with Audrey, and obviously he didn't direct you very much as Audrey in the first incarnation of Twin Peaks. Was that a struggle to work with someone different every week?
Oh, yeah, and I was a little tattletale. I'd run and tell David what people were doing. For me, Diane Keaton was not a very nice or good director. And just whatever, you just do. But I knew who she was, and the second season went astray. I mean, it was getting crazy, and then I worked with Roy London, so he taught me also to be self-directed to a certain extent. It's not a director's job to have you be in a deep, raw, open place and in living in a place where things can happen in the scene in an organic way. You need to come with that, because he's got so many other questions being answered, from light to costume to, you know what I mean, to where it's going to be shot, to what sets,
Sure. To me, the line that really sticks with me for Audrey Horne is, I'm Audrey Horne and I get what I want. I think that line in 1990 wasn't something that female TV characters were saying. I mean, at the time, did you feel that Audrey was just very different than what was playing on TV?
No, not at all. I had no idea. None. None. I saw the pilot. I'm like, well, I don't know. Everyone's sleeping with everyone. We did the show. I was sassy. My brother said, oh, you were like that and a little brat and doing it your own way ever since you were little. So that I thought, oh, that's interesting. David tapped into that, and obviously father issues, of course. And, but no idea. And then they write a special agent, Del Cooper, and who knew? I never personally was attracted to Kyle, but when Audrey walked in and met, special agent of Federal Bureau of Investigation, special agent Del Cooper, she almost died. And it was the cutest thing. And so it was very organic and beautiful. Things happened that nobody knew that they would happen. And David is the kind of director that considers when those things happen a gift. And he listens to them. He's not like, we were going to have Special Agent be with Joan Trent because that's what they were going to do. But all of a sudden this happened, so they just went in that direction.
So that was going to be one of my questions that I had for you. When you were playing Audrey, and maybe you just kind of answered it, but what was in her mind when it came to Cooper? What did she want from Cooper? Do you think that she wanted to get together with him?
First love. Oh my God. she's going to be a special agent girl. I dressed in the second episode, in the second season. Sometimes I had this double-breasted black suit dress, like special agent, Audrey Horne. I think she fell in love from afar and just thought he was just the cool, and she's going to help him, solve this crime, and they can be together. And her father's an asshole, and whatever. Yeah, I think it was one of those like that for a young girl who'd never been in love.
When I had watched it back then, I always wanted Cooper and Audrey to get together. But now that I'm a father who has an 18-year-old daughter, and I watched it with her like a year ago, I felt differently about Audrey and Cooper getting together. I'm curious if your opinion has changed over the years, or do you think it still would have been a good idea for them to get together on the series back then?
I think it was a dumb reason to pull the characters apart, and based on very petty, unprofessional things, because there was nothing unprofessional about this sweet, organic relationship that developed between two characters on the set, period, and that was working and that people were liking. Sure. So I think the reasons for doing it were stupid. But yeah, I didn't even ever have that perspective. No. And I didn't think Kyle, or Dale Cooper would ever be the kind that would like ravage some poor girl. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm playing a virgin, but I was 21 or 22. As an actress, as a person. So the funny thing was, she's too young, the character's too young. Oh, I know, let's bring in Heather, who's younger than the girl that Kyle is dating in life. Okay, yeah, that made a lot of sense. Because the fact is to me, possibly, it's not the fact, but it's a thought, it could have been one of the fun through lines to go through the second season that sometimes really lost its way and had people trying to be weird for the sake of being weird. It's just like, no, this, So that's what I feel about it.
What was it like to be Audrey Horne in the summer of 1990 between season 1 and 2 when Twin Peaks was the biggest thing ever? And you had to be in the center of it. You were on the cover of Rolling Stone. What was your life like back then?
I always remember the story of the first time realizing, because in LA you drive around in cars, and we were in New York for some reason, and people shouted Audrey across the street, and I grabbed my manager's arm. I was like, oh my God, and realized, what was it like? I don't know. I guess it felt like, oh gosh, finally to be on something that people think is interesting and is value and are excited about, because I certainly hadn't done anything. People always just talk kind of, I'm not exactly the, you know what I mean? I'm not like this, the Jodie Foster, the sweetheart of, no, and then God, you take your top off and then you just build as one thing, and it's just, America's a bit odd. I think it felt good. I had certain opportunities that were bigger films that I didn't like. I got to do Ruby, which I was really proud to do in between seasons with, John McKenzie, a really cool director, and what's his face?
Danny Aiello.
Yeah, but I loved the story because it was like a Marilyn kind of wannabe, like starlet, and just all these things she went through, and it was a period piece. I loved making that film, actually. But it was good. It was, I got nominated for things. I didn't even know they'd wake me up. I didn't know. Like, Roy woke me up. You got nominated. I'm like, what are you talking about? It felt, I guess even though it's just short-lived, because it doesn't really ultimately matter in terms of success, but as a young person having tried to act since I was, not tried to act, but professionally been acting since I was 17, those 5 years seem like a long time, and then all of a sudden now, wow, maybe people I got to do Of Mice and Men. I mean,
I know,
I got to
yeah.
do John Malkovich and Gary Sinise. I was like, whatever. I was so happy and proud, So it definitely opened doors.
So when you get to the point where you're in a Miss Twin Peaks contest, you're chasing a pine weasel, they're attaching you to a bank that's going to blow up.
But I wasn't in the Twin Peaks contest. I vetoed that. I said, if you all think I'm walking around parading up and down the thing, I'm not.
Yes.
They weren't happy about it, but So I think I made some cause about the trees, and I just wore a dress. I'm like, I'm not doing. Oh, that was so bad.
I mean, but you're a young actress at that point. Were you thinking like, I'm just kind of hoping this show does not come back because I want out? I mean, I know that you love Twin Peaks now, and you're so happy you were a part of it. But I mean, what they do with Audrey towards the end had to be disheartening for you.
It was. I fought hard. If you notice, you see, because I think, from my perspective and my teacher's perspective, some people on the show were trying to do what they thought I was doing, which I was never trying to do. But so I started dressing different and wearing 40s little suit coats and just trying to create and keep her going. I don't remember, but I'm sure at that age I was like, oh, blah, 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 this isn't working. And it was different without David there, and it lost its way. It lost its way.
It did.
So I don't remember specifically thinking, hey, fuck this, because Audrey was always kind of fun, and do you know what I mean? Even you get your script, and Audrey, your name is always written a certain way, and it's just, and you were still there in the spirit of trying to do this thing, with David, but sometimes I'd call him and go, oh my God, please. I mean, I think the worst moment was a plane coming up and some guy had his arm out the window with a blind person's stick, as if the airplane pilot was blind and had his hand with his stick. Do you understand?
Uh-huh.
I said, what is going on? Are you kidding? Is that supposed to be funny? It just lost the plot completely.
I mean, at least, though, I do think that you kept Audrey in line. So I'm glad that you weren't in the Miss Twin Peaks contest, because I wouldn't have wanted to see Audrey twirling those umbrellas and stuff.
Could you believe it?
I mean, because it's not what the show was, but did you... So this is a question that I've always wanted to know. It might be digging a little too deep, so it's okay if you don't remember. And I asked this at the Twin Peaks Fest once, and all the cast just looked at me. So I know that they filmed multiple scenes of who killed Laura. So it was Ray Wise did it, and Richard Beamer did it, because they didn't want you to know who really did it. The people on the show. But you're in a scene at Leland's funeral, sitting by Grace and Kyle talking about Leland dying. Didn't you have to know who killed Laura Palmer by that point? Because you guys are filming 6 weeks ahead of what airs on television. So how did you find out who did it? Was it really you didn't know until you watched it on TV? Or do you understand my question? I know I didn't ask it that great.
I'm so bad. I'm sitting here. I'm remembering the big funeral scene, but wasn't that Laura's?
Well, that's when they're all around that's the outside one. This is one, this has just always confused me, because it's episode 17, and you're sitting there with Sarah Palmer, and Leland's dead, then you had to know Leland did it. And there's no way you guys waited 3 weeks to film the next episode. Once you finished, you guys just keep working. So exactly. I just am curious, when did you find out who did it? Did you really not know who did it until it aired on television?
Oh, I really didn't know, and I just wanted selfishly to make sure it wasn't me.
Right,
actually, because it's possibility. I'm like, well, I didn't do it.
Right.
I honestly don't remember. I mean, if I did, I promise you, I would tell you. It's just like it's not that big of a deal now. But and yeah, other cast members might have different memories of
Well,
it.
nobody really remembers when they found out, and I find that interesting because it seems to me like you would have had to find out before it aired, just because you guys you're filming 6 weeks ahead of what airs, and Ray Wise wasn't coming to work anymore.
What's happening. I know, but we don't know who's there. Like, I can go 3 weeks and not see Machen, or I can go because it's just they're doing Audrey stuff, they're doing this stuff, they're doing you don't get to see everybody all the time on a set. You just don't.
Sure.
But it's a good question. I'm going to ask some other people now.
Okay. If it makes you feel better, I've asked a lot of the people, and no one really has the answer I'm looking for, but it's okay.
Right?
I need to talk to Mark Frost.
Really. And ambiguous. Like, how did it happen exactly?
Yeah, because it just fascinates me at the idea of keeping a secret on a television show just because you're so ahead of what airs.
Yeah,
so
but you know what? No, as Jennifer will say, nobody loves a secret more than David. He loves it. We have secrets on this set. And not even just secrets between he and I that, like, nobody else was supposed to know. It's like, because you told me that's secret. My last day is like, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm like, okay. And he told me a secret. I mean, he's so funny. So, and the funny thing is when you say, when did you find out? I flash in my head, fucking Leland. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I flash in my head Leland with white hair on the screen. So
right.
And I have like a fragment of seeing him on set going, oh my gosh, Ray, what did they do to their hair? He's like, oh my gosh, oh yeah, but no, I didn't. I might not have known until then, as ridiculous as that is.
It's just fascinating to me. It's just such an interesting thing.
Well, that's why he doesn't. Part of, like, he feels like that's much more of an impact, and that's why he's so like, I just don't want people to know things right now and things to sneak out so that they can get the impact when it happens. More kind of like they did with Twin Peaks. Who knew? He said none of us knew.
Right,
and he didn't know. Then David had a dinner with all of us girls, and he went around the table. Everybody had to tell their story of their perception of when it came together and what happened. And I partially feel that he tries to remember because I don't think they had any idea it would be as big as it was at all. I don't think anybody did.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why I'm not asking you a thing about season 3, because I don't want to know. I've avoided all spoilers and I want it to roll over me. Like, to me, because I've been involved, like, I've loved Twin Peaks since it aired. The idea that there's Twin Peaks out there that I haven't seen is the most exciting thing for me. I don't want to know anything about season 3. I mean,
and most of us don't know. Okay, that was at least in the other one, we would get scripts, and then I guess towards the end we weren't getting everyone's pages because it was getting sneaky towards the end of the second, or maybe the first. Whenever they were revealing that, when the studio made him reveal that he didn't want to, and it's just going to be different this time. And the prayer and the hope is that people love it, because if they do, and it goes well, I feel he would do more.
Oh, that's what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah, but he if it doesn't, then it's done. And he just, like, he's an artist of every kind, and he put it out. Sometimes it hits a wave, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes, you just don't know what happens. And that's not the reason for doing it.
Right.
So, but it was so much fun that he said to me, just the most hard part of working is you just got to put your nose down and write it. You just have to write it. Once you write it, everything else just moves along, and it gets to be so much fun, and he loves it. And he said, but it's hard, but you just do it, and then it's done. Because I was like, will you do more?
One of the things I was thinking about when I was preparing for this, I was listening to some Twin Peaks music, and Audrey's Dance came on. And then I thought, hey, this is written for you. Does that ever move you? Like, Angelo wrote songs for you. Is that cool, or is it something that doesn't come your way?
No, it's really cool, but it's for Audrey.
I know, but you're Audrey. I mean, I
know, but
realize you're
sometimes,
not, but
like, she was like, she's younger, and it's a weird, beautiful thing. Well, and that was the day it was like, well, you were dancing, you're gonna. I'm like, oh. I was scared. I didn't. Well, yeah, but I guess that was a gift of it, because an exhibitionist, it might not be as interesting if someone like, busted.
right. Yeah.
I don't know. It just happened. It's incredibly. It's very flattering. It's very amazing. It just wasn't. I'm still surprised that I'm so grateful to have been a part of magic. And it was nice and fun for the most part, especially when, DKL and Mark were around.
Tell me something about Richard Beamer. You guys have really good chemistry for a father and daughter. I mean, he starts off, as you said, as definitely a jerk, but I feel like over time, you guys had some really nice scenes.
Well, we do. I mean, it's a love-hate relationship, but not really. And I mean, she's like a child. She pokes at him to make things happen. And she, I couldn't believe when they gave me that crawl space. That was so cool. I think it was somewhat troubled. I mean, troubled keeps coming into my mind because girls need their fathers. And that can be me projecting because that's my experience. And I know some friends of mine that had theirs. They're just different and stronger. And he was there, but he just was, about money and about other people and, about putting away her little brother. And, he's kind of not some noble figure to look up to. And then, and Special Agent comes along and he fights crime and he looks, like he's beautiful, and you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's he's so heroic, and my dad's like, go into One-Eye Jacks, and you know what I mean.
That was my other question for you. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. So I have heard that you got sick in season 2 and couldn't film for a while. Is there some truth to that? And that's why Audrey is all done up on heroin. Is there any truth to that story, or is that just like a Twin Peaks myth that has rolled through things? Do you remember?
There were things going on for a period of time. And I wonder if that's even when the Emmys were airing, because I never made it to the Emmys even.
So did you have to film a bunch of episodes at once to make up? Because you're in every episode, or...
I think I did. It's something that I have to... I'm writing a memoir, and...
Oh, good.
I have to try to remember... You're reminding me of how it went. I mean, I remember having an office, a dressing room in the production office, IV thing on my arm, like under my sweater. And I'd go into this office where the thingies were cold to put antibiotics in my system. So that's fun. Yeah, that was crazy. Doing episodic television is weird because it kind of flows into each other so much that, and I don't remember it being more than a couple weeks.
Well, at least it's true. I just always wondered if it was true or not, because you just hear things and you never know what is true or not.
It was absolutely true, and it's something I want to share about in my memoir.
Well, then when your book is done, as always, you can come back and we'll help promote it. We had Charlotte Stewart on, and
cool.
she told some great stories about Jack Nance.
I would love to hear them. I love Jack.
Yeah, because they lived together for a while, and those stories were hilarious. So,
oh my gosh.
And it's really interesting. So tell me what it's like to go to the Twin Peaks Fest. I actually just made a documentary about that's going to play this year at the fest.
Which one?
Actually, it's playing at all of them this year, which I've been really lucky
No,
to.
but I mean, to go to which festival? Any of, like...
Yeah, I mean, just like that whole concept. There's the one in Seattle, and then there's the one in the UK. The one that my movie is about, the one in Seattle, but it's playing at the UK one this year, and so I'm going to both fests this year. But I just wondered, what's it like for you to be with the fans, because you weren't there the year I went.
When I've been there, I've loved it. I mean, it's nature just dominates there. I love the smell of it. I love the feel of it. It's certainly, like everything, gotten commercialized over the years, but it's beautiful, and people love to go. The other thing is the fans are different. It's been interesting in the last few years being in venues where I get to meet fans, because it made me realize they were the most important, and some of them, I mean, many of them actually, to be honest, they knew things and from the show that I didn't know, and some of them have said things about me as a person, like they really got who Audrey is through who I am, and it's touching and amazing. I mean, who do you do your work for if not people, to touch them on some level and to share your truth? It's like when you tell your friend the truth and they get theirs, and this is relationship. So it's the best. I mean, and it's, again, it is a surprise to me, and especially when young people, I'm like, they could be my kids. I have a 22-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, and they were moved by Audrey, but Audrey was, it was at the core. She's a young woman. She's finding out her power. She's finding out what she can do, and she's going after things that she wants, and yeah, and that's kind of a potent combination in young women.
Well, I mean, it's. I feel like you don't realize how important you really are to the fan base and what Audrey really means, and it's more. I guess the thing is that Audrey has nothing to do with Bob or the Red Room or the scary parts of Twin Peaks, but she's this positive female force that I think really does relate with fans.
Well, that is so wonderful. That makes me really, really happy. It does. That's the coolest thing.
And it's just the truth. I mean, that's just from talking to people over, I mean, of course, I've had a picture of Audrey Horne hanging up since 1990 from a poster that I got. And, it's now my wife makes me keep it in the garage, but it's still hanging up. It's still
that's
up.
Excellent. And the funny thing is that what I like about that is that she's sassy and they still love her, and she can be vulnerable and just show that side, but she's also, she gets maybe, hopefully, young women to say, I'm going to go for it. That's beautiful. That's great.
Well, I mean, it's just
you.
No, thank you. I mean, it's just really great. So, I just have to ask you about Liz Taylor for a moment, because I recently interviewed Corey Parker, because I'm doing a book on 30-something, and we started talking about you and being in there, and he told me you introduced him to his current wife, so he wanted me to thank you for that.
He's so funny. I know, right? What a funny, beautiful thing.
So what did you learn about playing Liz Taylor?
Oh, my gosh. A lot of things. Elizabeth was like my mother. My mother, to date, I think, is married 8 times. My mother's not an actress or anything. She was a musician. What did I learn? I loved her ability to keep believing in love. I just tried to understand the woman less than the legend. Some weird things happened on that set because 2 or 3 times the set got shut down. because I kept losing weight, and we were shooting 6-day weeks, and it was, the high points of her life. And a friend of mine said, "You think you're playing Joan of Arc, and you're not. You're just playing Elizabeth Taylor." but it was hard. It was hard. There was always something to do, and you're jumping. The first script is like her 15 to 35, and a lot happens in 15. You know what I mean? Montgomery Clift, freaking Mike Todd, then he dies, then yes, Corey, who played Eddie Fisher, and then Cleopatra starts. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm one person, and I'm nursing my first baby, who is maybe Miles. He's maybe he's not even a year yet. It was a lot. So, in one scene, Corey Parker reminds me may or may not sound strange. It doesn't matter. It's the truth. Corey Parker reminded me of my second father, Kenny, who was a really kind man, dark, curly hair, very loving, brown eyes. When I had to break up with him, I kept looking in the lens. And they got mad at me, and I got mad at them and said I wasn't looking at the lens. And they said, "Yes, you are. You're not looking at Corey, who's next to I was like avoiding him unconsciously. It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't deal with it, and I didn't know until later, in like looking at it and working with the psychologist about it. And there was 2 other times that like the set shut down, and it was hard. And the original writer, who was a very cool writer, took his name off, and the producer got crazy and was trying to rewrite it and add scenes where she's overweight and just exploit it more. And so it was a challenge, but she's amazing,
Well, so I mean, here I am now, I'm going to edit your book for you, but you need to put that story in about not being, or looking at the lens in your book. Because I mean, that's very fascinating, just because you think about an actor, really being in the moment, but yourself is coming through where you couldn't look at him. That's a good story. So make sure that makes it to the book.
I will. Thank you. And there's a lot of things like that work that has paralleled my life. And I decided that I thought it was just going to be a regular, boring memoir, and then somebody shared some really interesting ideas of making it more, I don't know, just a series of stories and lots of pictures and lots of,
Definitely. That sounds I mean, fans will eat that up in a second.
And they love Johnny Depp, and they love Prince, and they love, because the ugly people that want to pay you money want you to say lots of ugly stories, and I don't have lots of ugly stories, so...
And
I mean, I do have some about my own personal, things that helped to create, when I was a child, or helped to create me. But I don't have things ugly to say about those people. And
I disagree that people are looking for what's ugly. I think people want what's positive. It's producers and book publishers that think that's what people want. I mean,
my mistake, because that's exactly what I meant. It is the book people that I was trying to sell my book to. They want ugly things, and I'm like, well, I don't have a lot of those.
and your fans don't want them. So I think if you write a positive book,
ridiculous.
people will be happy with it. So
yeah.
Well, is there anything you need to promote that you're working on now that you want people to take a look at, or your blog or your Twitter account or anything?
I think, the blog and Twitter would be great, or Instagram is Sherry is me, with 2 R's, and my blog is Postcards from the Ledge.
Yes.
Which is I'm trying to evolve it to I'm going to forget right now.
Is it a Carrie Fisher reference? Because I've often checked out your thing. I always wondered if it was for Carrie Fisher's book.
That is. Oh my gosh, yes, because I love her so much, and that book. That's how I initially wanted my book to be, just very blunt and hopefully funny but poignant. Yeah. I can. Stepping into, what is it? A step away from the grace, or I can't remember now. But anyway, I write on it periodically, and and pieces from that will slowly come together for a book.
And then on Twitter, you're at Sherilyn Fenn 1. I'm
yes,
pretty sure.
At Twitter. Also, I have a children's book coming out that I just received the first printed copy of yesterday, and it's so beautiful. It's amazing, really, because it takes so many years. I mean, I wrote it maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and then we found this wonderful woman in Spain, Monica Armino, and she, we collaborated over emails and whatnot, and she made the most beautiful art for it, and it's finally here. It's a book. Oh my God.
And so where can people get that? Is that on Amazon?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I just wrote to my publisher today. It's beautiful. What do we do now? I said, because I can't go do readings and then be like, okay, it'll be here soon, and walk away.
Right.
So, I'm in this, interesting place of, it's just a little bit of a holding pattern. He will lead me. I've never done this before. So, but it's called No Man's Land. And
No Man's Land.
Really
okay.
wonderful.
Well, when you get the information, send it to me, and I'll tweet it out to our listeners and everything, and help, because everyone will definitely want to take a look at it. So.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you. This was really an honor to speak with you. I mean, I've loved watching your career over the years. I think you've done a great job of just playing different roles, but always keeping a piece of yourself. So I really appreciate you taking this time to speak with me.
Thank you so much. It does mean a lot.
Thank you.
I will speak with you soon, and you take care, Scott.
Well, there you have it. Sherilyn Fenn on the Red Room podcast. Wasn't she just adorable and sweet and kind and everything you'd want her to be? There's no way I could explain that, to my 25-year younger self when I was watching Twin Peaks and had posters of Sherilyn Fenn everywhere, that someday I would just be chatting with her. It was a great talk and a great honor. Make sure that you check out our website. We have a link to Sherilyn Fenn's children's book, No Man's Land, up there that as I say this, is not ready for publishing yet, but throughout time it will be, and you can order it and help support Sherilyn Fenn. I know we all want to, so... for those of you who are heading out to the Twin Peaks Fest here soon in Seattle, I will be out there. Come say hi. And Saturday at noon, they're going to be showing my movie, A Voyage to Twin Peaks, which is about the 25th anniversary Twin Peaks Fest. They're showing it at the high school. Everyone's invited. Take a break from the pie and coffee and donuts and come watch last year's fest. You'll see a really nice tribute to Catherine Coulson, the Log Lady, and some events that are not taking place this year, so it's not just living the year you'll be living then. For those of you who cannot make it out to the fest, how are you going to be able to see the movie? Well, don't worry. You can go out to Amazon right now and rent it. It's as low as 99 cents out there, and you can see what it's like to go to a fest, and I think people will really enjoy it. Go to Twitter and follow us at Red Room Podcast, and we have a Facebook page as well. And I want to let you know that I just turned in my book about 30-something, so that should be coming out in 2017. So you can check out the 30-something podcast, which I also do as well. I'm sure we'll be back for episode 115 and probably have some Twin Peaks Fest coverage. It's not going to be as exciting as having Sherilyn Fenn, but we'll do what we can do. And to the Twin Peaks Unwrapped boys, I know, you're not happy that I got Sherilyn Fenn, but I still think you should do the right thing. And if Sheryl Lee ever comes your way, push her over here, because it's Laura Palmer and she should come here first. Thanks, everyone, and a special thanks to Sherilyn Fenn for taking the time to speak with me. It meant a lot.